loves Live Free or Die Hard. It's the best movie of the summer.
Hey, time's over, sweetheart.
2 thumbs up.
Did you see that?
Yes, I thought I did it.
It's a jaw-dropping summer blockbuster. Live Free or Die Hard. Rated PG-13. Now playing.
Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2007 action sequel, Live Free or Die Hard. Now, to me personally, this is hands down the most underrated film in the Die Hard franchise. It got some good reviews at the time, but it's been more of a punching bag in recent years, and I don't understand why. I've seen people say it's bad because it's unrealistic, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? This is Die Hard. This franchise has a ton of unrealistic moments in it. Some of the most iconic sequences in this franchise are unrealistic. So get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. I'm sorry. It's also been criticized by people saying that it doesn't really maintain the spirit of the franchise. I highly disagree with that. If you want to see that in a Die Hard film, that is the calling card, sad to say, of A Good Day to Die Hard. Not for this movie. This film still maintains the same spirit to me, while also raising the stakes and making the size and scope even larger. Because now it's this fire sale for pretty much the entire country. And McClane is up against even taller odds than before. And I like the fact that at this point in the franchise, they kind of said, fuck it, and let's go even more over the top and even more insane. Because what were you really going to do? I mean, why not go there? At this point in the franchise, with the 4th installment that's coming out 12 years after the last movie, why not go big? And I think that was a really wise decision to make at the end of the day. I saw this in the theater when it came out. I had a really good time with it. But for some reason, I then had a bit of a falling out with the film, and I didn't care for it. I don't know what my past self was thinking. But my past self at the time was giving bad marks to Cobra and other films. So I guess I was going through some sort of crisis at the time. I don't know. Identity crisis, apparently. But I revisited the film since then, and I grew to like it again, and I watched it again recently, and I had a really good time with it. I thought it was a blast. A blast from the past. It really did feel like a 90s action movie that was released in the 2000s. It's one of my favorite action films of the 2000s, and I would say it's definitely one of the better sequels out there when it comes to an action franchise from that decade. The film was directed by Len Wiseman, who I think is a pretty capable director. I think he did a really good job with this film. The action sequences, they're shot well. There's not a lot of shaky cam or too much quick cuts. There's not moments where you're confused and you don't really know what's going on and you can't follow things properly in terms of the action. The action has a fair amount of adrenaline and impact to it. I felt the stunt work was really well done, considering that Bruce Willis was up there in age, and it seemed like he did a good amount of his own stunts. Which was surprising, but honestly, something that was good because it added to the realism of these action sequences. I also felt the other sequences that didn't deal with an action scene were well shot. They were very slick. They were very stylish. Overall, I think this was a great job by Len Wiseman. I think it was definitely a wise choice to hand him the reins of this franchise. Now, the film is based on I think it's like yeah, it's an article called A Farewell to Arms, and it was about the fire sale. And then a screenplay was tailored around that by Mark Bombach. David Marconi also was involved with the story, and for the most part, I think this is a solid script. Um, you have a little bit more of the heart from the first two films that is brought back into the franchise here, because now you have Lucy McLean, who's brought into the fold, and she's incorporated into the story, and John has to save her. You've also got this not necessarily a relationship, but a friendship that forms between McLean and this hacker, Matt Farrell. And I think the idea of the fire sale of terrorism that happens online, I thought that was a really cool idea. Techno terrorism was something that I felt was very prevalent at the time and still is to this day, and it made sense to move the terrorism into that direction, to have it more of a focus on technology instead of old school traditional means like bombs or just robbing a skyscraper, trying to break into a vault, or just taking an entire airport hostage. This time around, it's a techno-terrorism, and it's something that I felt was a good choice. I felt basing this film based on that article was a really clever idea. And I think for the most part it's pretty well executed. Is it realistic? No. I mean, I don't think there's a way you can turn a computer into a bomb just with a hack. Oh, if I press a button, my computer's gonna blow up. I don't think that's, unless somebody already put C4 in there. And apparently that's what it seems like. That part was a little confusing. Like, did they get computers given to them by Gabriel and company, and they installed C4 into their computer, so the computer already had a bomb in it? That has to be the case. Otherwise, there's no way that they could just turn a computer into a bomb with just some code. Um, And there are a lot of other stuff where, I mean, yeah, the way that he's able to hack into some of these systems is a little bit too easy. Like, he hacks into a plane, that kind of stuff. But it's the kind of thing where I was able to deal with it because it was an entertaining and enjoyable ride of a movie. So I didn't really care. Um, I like the fact that the villains are different, like where the henchmen in particular. So Gabriel's henchmen, they're doing parkour. They're a different kind of enemy for McClane to fight. They use guns, but they also use their physical ability. I also like the fact that McClane fights a woman. That's a different dynamic. I don't think he actually did fight the girl in Dire with a Vengeance, but here he has a pretty big brawl with Maggie Q's character, Mai Lin. And the film doesn't hold back. I like that too. I like the fact that in the fight with Maggie Q, he's grabbing her by the hair, throwing her around, hitting her. They're not trying to play with pillow gloves because of the fact that he's fighting a woman. I like that. And the villain, I don't mind the setup for the villain. I think it makes sense, it works. The reason why it's not executed as well as it could be has nothing to do with the script to me. It has every bit to do with the casting. So I'm not really going to blame the writing for the failings of Gabriel as a villain in terms of him being memorable or that compelling. I would say definitely, yeah, the weakest elements of the script have to do with, well, I mean, that's not necessarily true because there are some aspects of the villain where he doesn't do, like, he does the fire sale stuff, he hacks into a plane, but there really isn't like that big moment. Well, I mean, he does hack into the power company and causes an explosion, but I don't know, it just didn't really feel like he had that moment where you were like, oh my god, this guy is really fucked in the head. Like, it didn't seem like that. Like, he seemed like he was more in control. And I think that's the whole point. But he didn't really have that moment like in Die Hard 2 where Colonel Stewart lowers the sea level and causes a whole passenger plane to crash and blow up. Or the moment with Hans Gruber where he shoots Takagi in the head. Or the whole thing with Simon where, you know, he just blows up in a bunch of places randomly. So it seemed like there wasn't really that moment where he really solidified himself as that much of a threat. It seemed like he wasn't as much of a threat without his team of hackers. Without the hackers, like, it seemed like he was just kind of useless. And I didn't really feel that way for some of the other villains. So I think the writing could have been a bit better in that regard as well. Also, some of the humor in this is a little grating. Some of it works, but there are some moments where it's a little cringe. That's more to do with the writing. And also the character of Matt, at the end of the day, I do like him, but at first he's kind of annoying, and I think that's the point. Like, that's why you have a scene where John McClane even tells him to shut up. But I don't know, he just comes across as a annoying douchebag early on, you know, where he's just stuck up and full of himself, and you wanted to shove his laptop up his ass. But I think that's the entire point of that character, but it got a little on my nerves at times. So I know that was the point of things, but I think it could have been toned down just a tad. Other than that, though, I don't really have that much to say in terms of other issues with this script. Like I said, it's a solid script. I like the setup of the fire sale. I like the bigger size and scale of things. I love the setup for the bigger, just more insane action sequences. I know people criticize the sequence with McClane in the truck going up against a fighter jet, but I think that's fucking badass. I always thought that was an awesome sequence, and I still think it's an awesome sequence. I think it's a really well written, well executed, well done, absolutely badass action scene. It's right up there with some of the best in the franchise. And I also really like how McClane incorporates his yippee-ki-yay motherfucker line in the ending of this film. I like how he's willing to hurt himself in order to take out the bad guy. Thought that was different. He's hurt himself a lot throughout the franchise to the point where he's bloodied and just a total mess. But I don't think I remember the last time where he was willing to shoot through himself to shoot the other guy. So I like that. So yeah, solid script. And the cast, for the most part, except for the villain, is top notch. I mean, Bruce Willis, he's having a blast. He's really loving being McClane again, and it's just so much fun to watch. And I miss this Bruce Willis so much. I miss the Bruce Willis who had energy, who had life, who had charisma. This is the Bruce Willis that I love. and that I've been a fan of for all these years. And it's just a shame that you don't see this Willis that often anymore. This is when Bruce Willis had a soul. This is when Bruce Willis gave a fuck. And it shows. And I don't buy the criticism saying that this doesn't feel like John McClane. To me, it does. He still is able to slip back into this role and into McClane's shoes, and it feels very genuine and authentic. The whole bit with him confronting this guy who's going out with his daughter early on in the film. The whole back and forth between him and Matt. His dialogue and his expressions to all the crazy shit that's going down definitely is 100% McClane. I think the PG-13 version, because it's PG-13, makes things feel a little bit less like McClane. But if you watch the unrated version, which has all the swearing back, then it really does feel like significant signature John McClane. And yeah, I always thought that Bruce Willis did a good job in this film. I still crack up at a lot of his lines and still get a blast out of Bruce Willis just enjoying the hell out of his time on the shoot. Oh, that Asian bitch? She's down at the bottom of an elevator shaft with an SUV rammed up her ass. Is that your best shot? I always like this performance. And then Justin Long, I thought it was a good casting. I like Justin Long, and I thought ultimately once it got past the bumps in the road when it comes to this character, I started to like this character. I thought he was actually funny and a little bit endearing and had his own certain wit and charm to him. And by the end of the film, I felt that Justin Long and Bruce Willis developed some genuine chemistry with one another. Timothy Olyphant, though, is the weakest link. I just don't know why he was casted. Maybe they're trying to go with a younger actor for this kind of role. But the guy, he came across like a constipated robot. He was always speaking through his fucking teeth. On your tombstone, it will read, always in the wrong place, at the wrong time. It's like, stop speaking through your fucking teeth. And he had no personality, no charisma. Like I said, he was a fucking robot. And yeah, I would say that is definitely the worst thing about this movie, is Timothy Olyphant's performance as Gabriel. I would have loved to have seen someone like James Spader cast in this role. Yeah, it's an older actor, but it's James fucking Spader. Can you imagine James Spader versus Bruce Willis? And he can play that kind of role very well. The techno geek, that kind of character. But then he can also be very intimidating, very cold, very calculating, very charismatic, and very chilling villain. And I probably he didn't do it because he was never asked, or they didn't consider someone like James Spader. But that would have been fucking amazing, if you ask me. Then you have Mary Elizabeth Winstead. I liked her. I thought she was a good casting choice to play John and Holly's daughter. She definitely inherited a lot of John's traits in terms of the attitude, the never say die attitude of the character. Maggie Q was a good casting choice to play the second in command for Timothy Olyphant. Kevin Smith had a fun cameo as Warlock. Cliff Curtis, he was there as Miguel Bowman. That was another thing that I would say in terms of the script, like that was another kind of weak point, is like the stuff with the FBI guys. I didn't really do anything for me. and the performances by those characters were just kind of there. But when it comes to the main cast, other than Timothy Olyphant, I thought it was a pretty good cast. The score this time around is not by Michael Kamen. It's by Marco Beltrami. And I thought Marco Beltrami did a bang-up job with the score, because Michael Kamen had done the score for the previous 3 films, and he was doing his own thing here, but he wasn't afraid to pay tribute to Kamen's work. So as a result, it didn't feel like a completely alien or completely different kind of score. It still fit Die Hard. It still felt like a Die Hard score, because he still was willing to bring in some of Kamen's signature notes into his compositions, which I thought was a really nice touch. It's fairly well shot by Simon Duggan in terms of the cinematography. I thought the editing by Nicholas D. Toth was also noteworthy in terms of its effectiveness and its efficiency. The film is around 2 hours, and despite that, I didn't really find it to be that boring. There were some moments with the FBI guys where kind of was just there for me. It wasn't like to the point where I was completely out of the film or had lost interest, but there was a couple moments with the FBI guys where it was kind of like, eh. But other than that, and the fact that Timothy Olyphant is just so fucking terrible and one note as the villain, I really enjoy Live Free or Die Hard. I would say the unrated version is the version I go to the most, though, because it feels more like a traditional Die Hard film, because it's R-rated and you have the swearing and the F-bombs. It does have some negatives, though. There's one scene where the swearing is clearly forced in post, and then it does have CGI blood and some other stuff. And you can tell that this was PG-13 and they just had some other shots that were thrown in there trying to make it R. Although at the same time, I think there was some scenes that were shot for R, because a lot of this dialogue with McClane feels very authentic. It doesn't feel like he did it in post and dubbed it over. So I think that this film was maybe originally intended to be R, and then the studio was like, hey, no, we want it to be PG-13 because we want to make a lot of money. And the move did work. I mean, the move was successful. The film made a shit ton of money. It was the highest grossing film of the franchise. It still is to this day the highest grossing film. I mean, it cost $110 million and it made $388 million worldwide. So it was a pretty big hit for Fox. But I think it still would have made enough of a profit if it was rated R. So I can have fun with the PG-13 version. And I would say that has one positive over the unrated cut in terms of a line of dialogue. In the really exciting sequence where McClane is in the tunnel and Olyphant is sending all the cars towards him, and the parkour guy and the other henchmen, they're in the helicopter, and McClane uses a car to blow up the helicopter. In the theatrical version, he says, "I ran out of bullets." He was like, "I was out of bullets." Like that was funnier than the one-liner they had McClane say in the unrated cut. But other than that, and like I said, that one scene that's definitely really obvious that they just force things, the unrated cut is definitely something that I think people should seek out, especially if you weren't a big fan of the PG-13 version of this film. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about Live Free or Die Hard, except I like it. I like it a lot. I think it's a really underrated, fun action movie and a worthy installment in the Die Hard franchise. Anyway, thank you for watching my review, and as always, I'll see you later. See ya.